From APM, American Public Media.
Tidbits, family owned and operated since 1985. 4 locations: Bay Meadows, Hendricks, Mandarin, and now Fleming Island. Menu items include fresh sandwiches, salads, and soups. Open Monday through Saturday. Online ordering and menu at clarastidbits.com. The North Florida TPO is dedicated to transportation planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, resilient, and connected region. More information available at northfloridatpo.com. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjax.com.
This is WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. Up next, national and local news from NPR and the WJCT News team.
Good morning and welcome to First Coast Connect. I'm Ann Schindler. Today, Congressional candidate Brit Robinson. We ask the Democratic Socialist why she's hoping to oust the 4th District Republican incumbent as our election coverage continues. Then, a local dinner club celebrating food and friendship. We'll tell you how to get involved in a new group focused on breaking bread to build community. And the former producer of Amateur Night at the Apollo brings the competitive art form to the Harlem of the South at the Ritz Theater and La Villa Museum. Join the conversation. Give us a call on air at 904-549-2937 or head to firstcoastconnect.org where you can find all the ways to connect with us and sign up for our new daily newsletter. Stick around. We'll be back right after the news.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. Democrats in Maine are up against the clock to find a new U.S. Senate candidate. Graham Plattner suspended his campaign after a woman accused him of rape, an allegation he's denied. The state's Democratic Party has until July 27th to name a replacement to take on Republican Senator Susan Collins in the fall. Kevin Miller from member station Maine Public reports.
Plattner continues to deny recent accusations that he raped a former romantic partner 5 years ago. But during an emotional video filmed outside, he accused Washington interests of using the allegations to neutralize his populist, anti-establishment campaign.
We believe that for the movement to continue, it can't be made.
The Marine Corps veteran and oysterman handily won Maine's Democratic primary last month. The state party will now select a new nominee to take on Republican Senator Susan Collins in a race that could decide control of the Senate. For NPR News, I'm Kevin Miller.
The fighting between the U.S. and Iran shows no signs of easing. After a second night of U.S. strikes, President Trump says he hasn't ruled out more negotiations. NPR's Emily Fang reports from Tel Aviv.
Despite this trade and fire and Trump's comments that the ceasefire is over in his eyes, Trump did not rule out more talks with Iran. But both the U.S. and Iran seem to be playing hardball with each other, and they seem to be waiting for the other country to back down first yet again. Iran's top negotiator, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, wrote on X, the social media site, after the second day of U.S. strikes began, and he was warning, quote, "If you strike, you will get hit." And he wrote that the Strait of Hormuz would only fully reopen on Iranian terms.
That's NPR's Emily Fang reporting. Trump accounts are a new investment option that parents have for their children's future. The accounts launched over the weekend for any American under 18. NPR's Stephen Bisaha spoke with financial advisors to find out what families should consider before signing up and investing.
Whether parents should invest their own money depends on if they've already taken advantage of what could be better options. Carrie Joy Grimes is the CEO of the personal finance company Work Money, and she said one of those options is first maxing out contributions for your own retirement.
Because what happens is we put money into our kids' stuff, and then we end up needing help in retirement. And that is a way worse financial stress on our kids.
But if you have a baby born between 2025 and the end of 2028, financial advisors say it's a simple decision. Sign up. Those kids are eligible for a $1,000 contribution from the federal government. Stephen Basaha, NPR News.
This is NPR.
Good morning. You're listening to WJCT News, 89.9 in Jacksonville. I'm Stephen Ponson. It's 9:04. St. Mary's Episcopal Church in Palatka is now listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Built between 1883 and 1884, the wood and carpenter Gothic sanctuary on St. John's Avenue served African Americans who settled in Palatka's Newtown community after the Civil War. In addition to being considered one of Florida's oldest and most significant African American churches, it also is among Florida's oldest African American wooden churches still serving a congregation. The National Register of Historic Places is maintained by the National Park Service. On the list are the historic properties that have been deemed worthy of preserving. Recently filed federal legislation would help law enforcement investigate and prosecute criminals who target seniors through scams and financial fraud. Known as the Stop Scams Against Seniors Act, the bill would create elder justice task forces, allowing local, state, and federal agencies to work together to track and prosecute scammers. Florida Senator Ashley Moody is the bill's sponsor. She says scammers' methods of tricking seniors out of their money never stop evolving.
The amount of money seniors are losing to scams is rapidly increasing every year. As technology is increasing, so are the ways that they're targeting our seniors. And so we have to think outside the box. We have to do things different.
Moody says increasingly elaborate schemes steal millions of dollars from Florida seniors every year. Temperatures have now risen into the mid-80s in Jacksonville.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Capital One, offering their premium travel card, Venture X. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. Details at CapitalOne.com. And listeners like you who donate to this NPR station.
Democratic candidate running for Florida's 4th Congressional District. The district includes all of Nassau and Clay counties, as well as part of Duval County, west of the St. Johns River, and downtown Jacksonville. Brit Robinson, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So I have described kind of the physical parameters of the district. Tell us a little bit about the character of this district. How would you describe it?
Yeah, so this district is unique because, one, it has a history of gerrymandering. This is only its 3rd election cycle, but it ranges from urban in Jacksonville City Center all the way to rural on the far ends of like West Nassau, West Clay. So we have a lot of diversity in terms of background. We have, it also ranges from lower income and minority communities all the way to wealthy white suburbs, especially up in Nassau. So we have a lot of diversity here, and it's something that needs to be addressed. Our current representative hasn't been listening to the concerns of the community, and we need to have someone in district that is going to make sure that everyone's needs are respected and advocated for in Congress.
And so what is it about the makeup of the district or the character of the district that you think you would be well suited to serve?
Yeah. The main thing is working class struggles. That's not being able to afford basic needs is something that the majority of this country, but we see it in this district as well. I come from a working class background. I've gone through struggles with my mom. When I was going into high school, she got sick, and we had to rely on food assistance programs. We eventually got evicted by the end of the 2 years, and I had to move across the country to live with family and friends to graduate high school. But my story isn't unique, And it's becoming increasingly common by the day, especially with the cuts that this administration has been doing to social safety net programs. But at the same time, I have personally, like aside from my mom, I've always benefited from social safety nets because I'm the dependent of a military family. And now I'm a military spouse. So I've always, my entire life, been able to have stability through like healthcare where I don't have to pay out of pocket. I've been able to go to college and graduate debt-free from a good school. And so when I was going through hard times in high school, like going through the things with my mom, I was able to have hope for the future because I knew one, I had healthcare. So, going through the stress of having a family member be so ill, it does take a toll on the rest of the family. So I was able to get the care I needed. But at the same time, I was able to have, like I said, have hope for the future, that I was going to be able to go to college and be able to make something of myself, and just be able to create the life I want and not be held back by the family struggles that I had previously. When in this district, we have high unemployment, we have people are struggling with housing and groceries. Like we have the food deserts, and we have our rent prices are skyrocketing. Our eviction rate is one of the highest in the country. And like I said earlier, our representative here isn't advocating for us. And that's being able to connect with the constituents of our district, I think is critical, especially when our representatives across the board don't have that same experience. 2% of Congress comes from a working class background. And so when people don't have that shared experience, I do think that you fight different because you know what it's like to lose.
If you're just joining us, we are talking to congressional candidate Brit Robinson about her bid for the Florida's 4th District seat. If you have a comment or a question for the candidate, you can reach us on air at 904-549-2937, or you can go to firstcoastconnect.org to find all the ways to connect with us. So Brit Robinson faces fellow Democrats Michael Kerwin and LaShonda Holloway in the August 18th Democratic primary. They'll both be on this program the week after next as part of our ongoing election coverage. Her Republican opponent, Aaron Bean, who is the incumbent, we have reached out to him. We've not gotten an answer. And it's worth noting that when we covered the District 4 race 2 years ago in 2024, we reached out and also did not get an answer in that during our coverage at that point too. But of course, that stands open. So when you describe yourself, I kind of introduced you with some of the language that you use. Mm-hmm. You call yourself a queer democratic socialist. You talk about coming from a multicultural and multiracial family, a military family. You're young. You're 31 years old, which is young for someone to get into politics, and especially at this level, jumping into a federal level seat. What do those various identifiers mean to you? What do you think they signal to voters when you tell people about yourself with those particular characteristics?
Well, I think that there's a lot of distrust right now in our political system, and people don't see themselves reflected in their representatives. I'm able to, by me being open about my background and the experiences that I've had in my life, that's where I'm able to have a conversation with people and start to try to rebuild some of that trust. We haven't had one of the reasons I talk about being queer is when I was in high school, that's when I realized that I wasn't straight. And so I know what it's like to be that scared kid in high school, not knowing if they were going to have support from their family or their friends and be targeted. And at the time, marriage wasn't legal, and so nationally, and so it was thinking of that I may not be able to marry the person that I love was very concerning at that time, and so that's a shared experience. Saying that I am a democratic socialist and talking about my values of being anti-war, and tying that into like military service is important, because in military culture, we don't really talk about politics, and being against war is vocally is something that you don't do in this community typically. You might be behind closed doors with people that you trust, but it's not seen as kosher. And that's changing, I think, over time. We're starting to see active duty military also show up for protests and using their voice. I was just at a rally for veterans and active duty service members up in Philadelphia for the 250th. And it was such a unifying experience that everyone was coming together to protest the war in Iran and just foreign war in general. But these are all things that make it so that I'm able to have these conversations with people who typically don't see themselves represented, especially like one in government and two at the federal level. And especially in Florida, like we haven't had a queer candidate or representative in the state of Florida. It's very exciting right now. We have, I believe, last I checked, 5 congressional candidates in Florida. There's a really good chance that one of us gets into Congress, at least one of us, and we're able to show that Florida can be a safe space for our community. And I'm hoping that we are able to show that there is a shift and a fight back against this administration and the targeting of our minority communities and our LGBT communities.
Got some calls for the candidate Brit Robinson. We have a call from Brenda on the west side. Good morning, Brenda. Go ahead.
Good morning. Hello, Brit. You might not recall, but I met you over at Springfield a few weeks ago, and I posed a question to you regarding your position on funding universal health care. And your response to me was that your intent was to cut military spending. And I would like to have a follow-up question to you to find out exactly how or what part of the military do you intend to cut in a way that could fund universal health care. And that concerns me because you yourself are a beneficiary of military spending. So how are you going to cut without hurting the people that are currently serving our country?
Thanks for the call.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were talking about funding universal health care. It's one of my main platform points, is that I believe that everyone should have access to health care regardless of your employment status or your background. No one should struggle to see a doctor in their time of need. In terms of funding it, there's many ways that we can allocate funds. We spend enough in our military budget and in our spending in general across this country that we are able to reallocate those funds. So with military, I don't believe that we should be sending money to Israel right now. I don't believe that we should be supporting any country that is responsible for a genocide. I also don't think, we shouldn't be in the war in Iran. We're spending over $1 billion a day. All of that money is something that can very easily go towards like healthcare or social safety nets or any variety of things that help give people dignity and stability in their lives. So yes, I am a military family member, and I absolutely support our military community, but I do think that we have to be aware of when we are recklessly spending in foreign conflicts, especially, and making sure that we are not that our military and our taxpayers, taxpayer dollars are not being taken advantage of for military contracts.
We've got an email from Susie. She says, my household of 6 have been disappointed with the lack of representation in District 4. Our current representative just seems to be a party loyalist, and all he ever talks about in his email blasts and his telephone town halls is the things he's doing to support his party and the President of the United States. I have 4 Gen Z people in my house, and they are all saying exactly what she's saying. We need somebody to represent us and not a political party. We've got a call from Emily on the west side. Good morning, Emily. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning. And this is a question for Ms. Robinson. I'm just wondering, I was looking at Michael Kerwin's campaign and stuff, so I want to see how you differentiate because I see a lot of the same values and stuff, so I want to hear more about that.
Thanks. And of course, Michael Kerwin is one of your Democratic opponents in the primary, along with LJ Holloway. And I want to ask you about that and also kind of wrap in a question about fundraising, because Michael Kerwin has raised about $500,000 so far. You've raised about $16,000, which would suggest a real steep uphill battle for you.
Yes. First off, I'll say, as far as the financial end of it, we have recent polling in this district. We did a poll, and it shows that Michael Kerwin is spending 20 times as much as I am for approximately the same vote share. So I'm relatively spending about $100 as of right now, or the last, our data showed that I was spending about $100 per vote for support. Michael Kerwin is spending almost $2,000. I do believe that that shows how you're going to be spending money going forward, and how effective are you going to be in your spending, and thus responsible. So we'll put that to the side. I think that I am being much more careful about our donors' dollars. And
well, to be fair, you have way fewer donor dollars, right?
This is true. Yep, and this is true. But I think when someone has raised that much money, but I am able to keep up with them, I think it goes both ways. It shows that spending is not going as far as it should, and also that I'm keeping up.
Sure.
And so
what are some policy points where you would say you really differ from Michael Kerwin?
Yeah. So I think the number one thing or one of the biggest things that I have an issue with is I have not heard Michael Kerwin talk about being against Israel, and the supporting of Israel.
And do you mean military support?
Military support. Mm-hmm. Yes, correct. There also hasn't been a clear answer of whether or not he would take AIPAC money in the future. I think that that's a really big problem.
And AIPAC is a Israel lobby.
Correct. Yes. And so when we're looking at who is funding our campaigns for office, most, or I shouldn't say most, I will correct, a large portion of our representatives in Congress across the aisle receive money from Israel lobbies, especially AIPAC. And AIPAC has been dumping millions and millions and millions of dollars across the country in races that would support the continued war in Iran.
You're not saying that they are specifically donating to your opponent, Michael Kerwin?
No, and that hasn't happened. Aaron Bean has. Aaron Bean, AIPAC is his largest campaign donor. But with Michael Kerwin, there has not been a definitive answer on whether or not he would accept AIPAC money, and I think that's very concerning because our representatives should be working for us, not for working for exterior organizations, especially those that have interests in war and out of country.
Have you taken a position on accepting money either from PACs or from out-of-state donors?
Yes. So for PACs, like corporate PACs, I will not take corporate PAC money. I also have said that I would not take money from AIPAC. And I don't think that there's a problem with taking out-of-state donors. I do think that we ideally should have our donors be coming from in district and within the state. That should always be the priority because we want to have support from our district. But also when this is historically, at least lately, Florida has been abandoned from the Democratic Party on a large scale, and it's very hard for us to keep up with resources. Like our county parties are really struggling as far as having the resources to have get people out to vote and get people registered. And so any support that we can have across the country is critical to winning this race. Hopefully I take the nomination and I flip the seat. But regardless, we need to flip this seat, period. And whoever is able to help do that and be a part of that, that mission is very much appreciated across the board.
We've got a question from Chris on Facebook, and I want to kind of expand on it a little bit. She says, what experience does Brit have to make sure money comes back to Duval if elected and sent to D.C.? But, I mean, what experience do you have writ large that would inform how you would lead, how you might interact with other people, in a political environment, why voters should trust you to carry the mantle of their wishes to DC?
Yeah. So I haven't worked in politics before, so I'll keep that straight. I'm coming at this from someone who has the experience of the everyday person, and I do think that is really important. I often have the question posed to me of, well, like, how do you know that you're experienced, and like, how are you qualified over opponents? Well, I think when we look at who is in office right now, a large portion of our representatives are, like I said, don't come from working class backgrounds, but specifically are lawyers and businessmen. That hasn't gotten us anywhere good right now. The status quo isn't working. We have to have change. And I'm hoping that this is one of the pathways that we can do this, is by diversifying the people and the backgrounds that are in Congress. I was in leadership for military support families, or support programs for families, and so that's where like my leadership experience comes from. I was also hired by the VA to be a GS11 interior designer for a number of clinics outside of Chicago. It's really what I should be doing right now. But when Trump took office, when the administration changed over and they put in a hiring freeze, my offer was rescinded along with thousands of other people. And so this is like, I'm doing this because this is a critical moment in our country where we don't have time to sit around and wait for change from people who should have already enacted the change. And hopefully people like myself, progressives and democratic socialists across the country who are coming from these working class backgrounds, who are able to build that trust within our communities over time, are able to deliver on the change that we need.
Got a call from Nate on the west side. Good morning, Nate. Go ahead.
Good morning. So she was talking about her experience and things. I was just wondering, what her experience was. But she kind of got into that a little bit. But like you say, you just did leadership with support families. Like what? I mean, there's a lot of like low-level leadership that doesn't really give you the skills to, to be in office. But yeah, so how does that really prepare you? And what are you doing in the community to get out there and connect with people, learn what the communities are going through, and then.
Sure, that's a good question, Nate. So, I mean, what specific leadership skills do you have?
Yeah. So sorry, let me correct myself or start, is that my campaign from the start has been focused on building coalition. I know that I think that it is the responsibility of a candidate to know what their strengths and their weaknesses are and know where their skills, where you may have gaps in your skills. And it's your responsibility to make sure that you build a team that has that experience and knowledge to help guide you to make the right decisions. I'm not going to have the same career background that my opponents do because I'm half their age. So I'll talk about my personal work experience. Like I've worked in a number of many fields because as a military spouse, we move around a lot. It's very hard to have a linear career. So I've worked in design, I've worked in construction, in tax prep and legal document review for federal cases. I've worked in I'll keep it there. Oh, retail and food service. I've done so many jobs because when you move around that much, it's, like I said, it's very hard to keep a linear career. But also as a military spouse, we're often looked at as, or we're denied job opportunities because we're seen as not that they're not going to be able to rely on us long term because we would be moving in a few years potentially. Anyway, but this is also the same experience that a lot of people of the younger generations are facing as well. We're struggling with employment and being able to get a job. When I was applying for my job with the VA, it took me a year to find that job, and that was applying to jobs, like thousands of jobs, as a full-time job in and of itself. And so I do think that it's, like I said, I may not have the same leadership experience that some of my opponents do, but that's why I'm building my team out and working with local community orgs and activist groups in the county, in the district, in the state. I'm endorsed by progressive orgs as well, and we're already working with progressive candidates across the country, trying to start the work now of building out policy so that come day one we are already prepared, and trying to kick off the changes that this country desperately needs, and that the majority of people feel like they aren't being listened to.
So a couple of messages, one via email and one via Facebook, that touch on a couple of your policy points, one of which is you have said, and they're asking you to explain, that you think that the minimum wage should be between $30 to $50 an hour. So put a pin in that. I'd like to talk about that. And then an email relating to LGBTQ issues. This is a question specific to gender-affirming surgeries, asking, do you believe minors should be able to get hormones and gender-affirming surgeries without parental consent? And is any age too young?
Sure. So as far as the gender-affirming care, that's something that needs to be exclusively between a patient and their provider. Obviously, parents, to a degree, are involved in that process, but that is, I hope everyone is aware that going through having gender-affirming care, especially as a child, is a very lengthy process. It often takes many, many years, and it depends on the state, but sometimes they have to go through counseling, they have to go through a lot of testing, and this isn't something that is chosen overnight. This isn't something that is rushed. Often there are age minimums, so a child might have to be over the age of 16 to even be considered.
What do you consider an appropriate age?
I think that's a doctor's decision. I don't believe that, I don't have a medical degree, so that's something that a doctor, I think, should. The people who study this and dedicate their entire lives and their careers to making sure that kids are safe and well taken care of in their medical treatment, that's a decision that is made by them. I don't believe that it's the responsibility or it should be under the purview explicitly of a congressperson to go in, step into a doctor's office and make medical decisions when we don't have that training. For the minimum wage, when I talk about how the minimum wage should be raised and how it should be between 30 and 50, that's based on like inflation over time of what minimum wage used to be when people could work a full-time job and be able to save for a house and for retirement and provide for a family. So if we were to increase that to today, it would be over $50 an hour. That is very hard for people to conceive, especially for people with small businesses who look at that and they go, how am I going to be able to pay my employees? Like, that would bankrupt them. And so I think that that's where we have to bridge that gap. As a government, I do think that it's a responsibility of the federal government to make sure that we can afford our basic needs, that we have access to health care and affordable housing, and that we aren't being exploited by corporations and the wealthiest people of the country to make profits. And so if we're looking, we've been fighting for $15 an hour for 15 years. It's time that and that is out of date. In most cities, $15 an hour still does not let you live on your own in a one-bedroom place, let alone save for your future. So it's time that we start pushing for a higher minimum wage across the board. That's, I've advocated for $30 an hour by 2030. That would be a goal, and we would see how far we can progress with that.
All right, I want to ask one more question before we wrap. This is from Mike on Facebook, and he says, when you talked a little bit about having a transient background with the military, but he says, when did this candidate move here? She hasn't been involved locally at all until just recently. So how would you answer that? I mean, you are a fairly recent permanent transplant to this area.
Yeah. So I decided that I was going to run a year ago, July 4th last year. And as a military spouse at the time, we were stationed out of state. It's just so to give some background for people who aren't familiar of how military out-of-state residency works. When you're in active duty, certain states allow you to set your residency where you are stationed, and then hoping that you're going to come back, which we did. My husband's a pilot, and the plane he was flying at the time was based out of NAS Jax. So we intended to come back here. And so we established our residency, and then we were stationed elsewhere. And when I decided to run this entire time, and that was 2018, when we established our residency in Duval. So we've been Duval voters since 2018, and that's where I've been keeping up to date with politics and voting that entire time. So when I decided I was going to run for Congress, I started traveling here as much as I could for 6 months. And my husband was also in training out of state. So we were already balancing 2 households, and it was unfeasible for me to move here. We had to wait until he finished training. And so that is what delayed my time being here full time. I really wish I could have been here longer, but I've been here full time since the beginning of this year. And before that, I was here every month for a few weeks every month, and building coalition, like I said, trying to make sure that I'm catching up and with the current needs of the community, and making sure that I am accessible to everyone so that they can advocate to me what their needs are, and then I can do my job in Congress.
Brit Robinson is running for the District 4 seat in Congress. We are going to be talking to her Democratic opponents in the coming weeks. Michael Kerwin will be on First Coast Connect August 3rd, LJ Holloway on August 4th, and of course our offer to the incumbent Republican Aaron Bean remains open. Brit Robinson, thanks so much for being here today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Very nice.
Up next, a local dinner club celebrating food and friendship. We'll tell you how to get involved in the new group focused on breaking bread to build community. Welcome back. A standing invite to dinner with strangers, or possibly friends to be. That's the concept behind a new monthly gathering meant to foster a culinary community. Here to tell us about it, we are joined by Katie Sims. She is a nutritionist, a cooking instructor, and a participant of the brand new Jacksonville Today Dinner Club. Katie, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're also joined by Pete Havens. He's WJCT Public Media's Director of Revenue and Business Management and the brains behind the operation. Pete, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Ann. Good to be here.
Oh, I'm glad to have you. And we are also joined on the line by Jessica Palombo. She's the editor of Jacksonville Today. She's being delayed somewhat by the San Marco train, as I understand. So, Jessica, thanks for joining us via telephone.
Good morning.
So, Jessica, I'm going to start with you. I mean, you're a news director here. You've got a lot on your plate, figuratively speaking. Why take on a dinner club? I mean, how does that mesh with the overall concept of Jacksonville Today?
Well, Jacksonville Today, we always thought was more than just news, more than just us talking at you. We always envisioned it to be a two-way conversation, which is something that we do with Ask Jax Today and the Your Take section of the newsletter, where we're taking people's thoughts and reprinting them and answering people's questions. So taking that a step further, we wanted to connect people and actually create in-person community. And we found out about this service, the Dinner Club, that does this and matches people for meeting up for dinners in person, making new friends. And it just really clicked with us as a natural fit for an extension of Jacksonville Today.
And so it's something that is offered to people who are regular subscribers to Jacksonville Today. They kind of get it in their newsletter. And Katie, I imagine that is how you learned about it. What about it appealed to you? It seems like it could be a bit of a leap of faith to sit down with a bunch of people that you've never met before.
Absolutely. And anybody that knows me will be like, oh yeah, of course, Katie did that. Katie would totally do that with her time. When I signed up, I knew that, or I felt like, well, if I'm reading this every day and feeling like this excited about my community and everything that I know, I think that the people that are going to be there are also going to be the same. So yeah, it was definitely a leap of faith. And I had tons of people ask me, why are you doing this? But yeah, it was an incredible experience.
And why are you doing this?
I did it because I like meeting people. I like learning about the community. And the experience was interesting because there were people that have lived in Jacksonville for 20 years. And were like, I've never been to this restaurant. I've never been on this street. I don't know what you're talking about, this place. And I was like, oh, wow, this is so exciting to meet people. I've lived here for many years, but the connection that I have with people that have lived there, and they're like, they don't even know about the places that I go to every day. I was like, that was really exciting.
Pete, tell us a little bit about kind of the guts of how this works. I mean, what is the mechanism? You offer a range of restaurants, people sign up, but I mean, how does the system help create these different groups of people? How does it group them?
Sure. So we use, like you said, a service called the Dinner Club, or like Jessica said, and it groups people by a quiz that you take online. So it's a personality quiz that also covers your dietary preferences and your budget. And you sign up and pay a small fee, and you basically are matched with 5 other people. So there may be many participants, but you're just at a table of a total of 6 at most in the neighborhood that we're doing that month. So this next week, we're going to be in Murray Hill, St. Augustine Beach, and Fernandina Beach. So you'll choose that on our landing page, and you'll take the quiz, and you don't find out what restaurant you're going to until the day of. So you get a text or an email or both saying where are you going that night. So that's kind of part of the mystery of it. But it's a locally owned restaurant in one of those communities, and you don't know who you're meeting. But I've participated twice myself, once solo and once with my wife, and it's a great experience. It's, conversation flows after a little bit of small talk, and you like Katie said, you learn things about that neighborhood that you might not have known that other people contribute. Like someone was going to a dance class that I didn't know about. It's things that you wouldn't have otherwise learned.
And Jessica, I mean, some of this obviously is automated by the system that you all use, but then there's this element of like how you're choosing neighborhoods, how you're choosing restaurants. Is there a way that you approach that focus? Are you, and I'm guessing the restaurants are in some way involved. Do they know that they're a part of this when the reservations are made?
Right. So we're trying to have geographic diversity. So this next week, we have Murray Hill, we have St. Augustine Beach, we have Fernandina Beach. So 3 different neighborhoods from across our region. Each month, we are trying to move around to different areas and be inclusive that way. And the restaurants also, there's a wide range of price points. So that's part of the quiz, as Pete mentioned. So, if you don't want to spend a ton, but you still want to participate, there's a casual option on the evening. There's all the way up to upscale dining on the same evening. And then at the end of the evening, everybody can come together for a bar meetup after the dinner. So you are sitting there with your other 5 participants at your dining table, but then at the end of the evening, I actually participated in the bar meetup in the San Marco neighborhood for our first dinner club and got to meet all of the participants from the various restaurants coming together. And it was truly, I would say, like a magical experience. It exceeded my expectation for the level of connection that people were finding, just the positive feedback that we were hearing from the participants of how they were going to recommend it to friends, how they wanted to return and come back to another dinner, how they were finding like-minded people at their table, but also people who they would never have spoken to otherwise. And I really walked away from that evening just feeling that this was something special.
Katie, you have had some reflections about this yourself, and I'm curious, what was it? How did it come across to you? Tell us a little bit about the experience, and then, what you've been telling people about the experience since.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what you asked earlier, I was thinking a little bit more. I was like, I really like to stretch myself a little bit and put myself in uncomfortable situations. And this was I felt a little scared. I felt a little nervous. I did it anyway. And that was got me to go there. And even feeling nervous up until the moment I sat down and ordered a glass of wine. Like, why am I here? My palms are sweating. I don't know who these people are going to be. But everybody was really nice. So my time there was really exciting. But what I noticed is that not a lot of people are like me. Not a lot of people like to put themselves in uncomfortable situations. In my job, I spend a lot of my time client facing. I'm on a microphone right now. I like to be in front of people. I like to talk to people. Not everyone is like that. Some people really had to be encouraged to join the conversation. And while I didn't want to be like the ringleader and like the icebreaker, kind of telling everybody what to say, I really enjoyed sitting back and seeing people kind of slowly open up. And what the big takeaway for me was, as I was thinking about this, was, oh, people need practice. We don't naturally have these social skills, and we're spending so much time on our phone. People need practice. You need to know how to ask people a question and respond thoughtfully and listen. And those are skills that I was like, wow, what a great space to provide for people to practice this.
Yeah, it's a weird time, Pete. I mean, we're, I think, in some ways still kind of experiencing long COVID when it comes to our communication skills.
Absolutely.
A generation of very young people that were often being, masked when they're communicating, seeing a lot of their friends through social media or a telephone. And so that is one thing that's different, but it's also politically a difficult time. And I think a lot of people are scared, not necessarily just of meeting and being with other people, but of topics coming up that cause sort of irreparable conversation rifts, things that kind of people can't get past. So is there any mechanism to guard against that? What are you anticipating from people as they sit down to these meals with strangers?
Right. I think that what part of the guard against that is just being in person. I know that sounds odd, but there's a mask when we're on our phones or when we're on a screen that allows us to sort of say whatever we want. But when you're in person, you're looking at someone who has a similar experience to you in your neighborhood, and there's not that animosity that sometimes happens online. So I think that I had that sort of barrier going into it, and it just melted away as the dinner went on. Mm. So it is something where you're sharing good food. Humans have done this for thousands of years and gather around good food and good conversation, and that's sort of the thing that wipes it all away and breaks down barriers.
And Jessica, this is something that people who subscribe to the Jacksonville Today newsletter or go to the Jacksonville Today website will see. But I mean, it's not exclusive. I guess you don't have to necessarily be a member of any existing community to participate. Is that right?
Absolutely, yes. All you need to do is go to the page and sign up. And we saw that with our first dinners, there were people who had just been forwarded this by a neighbor, by a parent, by somebody who said, hey, I think you would enjoy doing this. And that was the really great thing about it, is that we are expanding beyond the existing Jacksonville Today community with this offering, and people are just finding it and coming out, and I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, just to second that was really great to see people that weren't part of the newsletter community and talk to people that might not have already been subscribed and talk about Jacksonville Today or just anything with, it's open to anyone.
Yeah. And Katie, you plan to go to another one?
Yes, I do. Actually, I want to try to go to a neighborhood that I don't go to very often. Like specifically, I picked one that was nearby me, but I don't spend a lot of time in Atlantic Beach or the beaches area. So I'd like to maybe see where we go out there and maybe meet a whole nother group of people.
Yeah. Well, it's a really cool concept. I appreciate you all joining me this morning to talk about it. Jessica Palombo, Katie Sims, Pete Havens, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ann.
All right. Up next, cultivating the next generation of artists through healthy competition. We'll tell you about the upcoming amateur talent show at the Ritz Theater.
Congressional Pen, dedicated to agriculture and culinary endeavors, offering field-to-fork dining and outdoor experiences on over 300 acres. Sip, dine, explore. Information at congressionalpen.com. Terrell Hogan Law.
I'm Wayne Hogan. When people are hurt through no fault of their own, finding the who, what, when, where, why, and how that led to the accident is critical to proving the truth.
More at terrellhoganlaw.com.
A year ago, WJCT Public Media lost nearly $2 million in annual public funding. The journalism you trust is still here. The educational resources that serve families and classrooms across our region are still here. Why? Because this community stepped up. The best chapter of WJCT Public Media is not behind us. It's the one we're about to write together. Help us continue the next chapter at wjct.org/future.
Is the economy working for you?
2019, where you had 65% said it was working for them. Personally, the economy was. Now that number is 37. That's a unbelievable change.
We're bringing back our money ladies, Rana Faruhar and Michelle Singletary, on how to cope with that change. That's on the next On Point.
Today at 11 on WJCT News 89.9.
Democratic Socialists are having a moment. They're winning primaries in New York and Colorado, where 29-year-old Democratic Socialist Maylot Kuros defeated a 15-term incumbent. But not everyone is happy with the hot streak, including President Trump and centrist Democrats. What a wave of socialist success means for the midterms, next time on 1A.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. The iconic La Villa Theater that once housed talent like Ella Fitzgerald and Ray Charles is welcoming aspiring local performers for a summer talent show tomorrow. Here to tell us about it is Deborah McDuffie. She's the creator and producer of Puttin' on the Ritz. She's also the theater's artistic director. Debbie, thanks for being here.
Hi, Ann. Thank you.
Great to have you back. We're also joined by Dr. Sean Powell, the theater's community development and outreach coordinator. Dr. Powell, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So this event is a bit of a beloved tradition for the theater, but it is based on an event that you also had your hands in, Miss McDuffie, at the Apollo.
Right.
So Showtime at the Apollo is something people will know of. That is something that you produced while you were there, the Apollo talent show. It's a long tradition.
Apollo Amateur Night.
Apollo Amateur Night, going on maybe 90 or 100 years. But
Yeah.
For a portion of that, you put the show on. What is it about a competitive amateur talent show that is so attractive to audiences and people who are participating? Because it can be It can be tough.
It can be really tough for the performers. It gives them the opportunity to present their craft in an environment where they see how the public, not their church, not their parents, not their friends, react to their talent. So they get the opportunity to actually go out there and as we used to say, show us what you can do.
Mm-hmm.
The Apollo Amateur Night was pretty deadly because if they didn't like you, they would boo, they would do this and tell you to get off stage. Sandman would come out and brush you off the stage. So, but it gives people the opportunity to get the feeling for what it really feels like to stand in front of a crowd of people and sing or dance or tell comedy.
Yeah. Did you ever feel bad for people on stage?
Yes, because in rehearsal I would instinctively know who wasn't going to make it.
Oh, really?
So I was like back there with my fingers crossed, like, oh please, oh please. And 9 times out of 10, they didn't. That crowd was so rough. You could walk out. They booed a singer off because they didn't like her shoes. She did not even get to sing. So
wow. I mean, there's been a lot of talent that came out of that particular venue, including Billie Holiday, Lena Horne,
Ella Fitzgerald.
More recently, her, Gabriella Wilson, who goes by the name Her, is a performer, performed there at age 10. So it is a star-studded stage.
Stephanie Mills performed at 8.
Wow.
Yeah. Luther got booed off 5 times.
Luther Vandross?
5 times.
Yeah. So it can be a rough crowd, but it is also a way of sort of sustaining creativity and encouraging participation. And even that element of fear can be kind of animating for some performers. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So what is it that you tell people the event is like?
It's ecstatic. I mean, it's amazing to be able to see, your locals to get on stage and probably the beginning of a career that's going to just last forever. Like the greats that you just said, like Luther got booed 5 times, but look at his career, so it's just an experience, for the family to come out and to enjoy. So it's a great experience.
Tell us about specifically this event. I mean, it's kind of, I think, meaningful that the Apollos, is in Harlem. LaVille is often called the Harlem of the South. And this venue itself is such a storied place. I would imagine that it's appealing for performers to share the stage that has been shared by so many.
Yes, it's amazing. I mean, they would tell me, being out in the community, that to be able to step on that stage and to perform is just an experience that they just love. So, yeah.
So the performers have auditioned. This is, I guess, an ongoing culling process, the ones that are performing tomorrow night. I mean, they've already been in front of some audiences. Tell us how that works a little bit.
We don't even know who and what experience they've had. They come to us to audition, to perform. They cannot be professionals. In other words, they cannot be going around town getting paid to perform. They have to be amateurs, hence the name of the show. And it's interesting because you're in a strange environment where people are reacting to your talent. They don't know who you are, so they're reacting to your talent. So you're not a lot of performers get rude awakenings when, like I said, especially the folks who in church, they sing 3 notes and people are screaming and hollering, and then they come to do amateur night and they sing their 3 notes and then 5 notes and then 7 notes, and then it's like boo. And it's like some of them are in shock. When it happens, it's like, why is this happening? It's reality check. That's what we should call it, a reality check.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is.
And so if people want to get involved, either as an audience member or a performer, what's the process?
Well, the audience people can buy, the tickets we've kept them at $10 because this is a family show. So we wanted to make it so it's affordable for a whole family to come, because we have adult and youth contestants. We have some really dynamite kids who come on the show. So we have auditions. We're only doing 6 shows a year. We used to be every first Friday.
Yeah.
Now, we've kind of changed the format in terms of time. So we hold live auditions, and they can also send in audio/video auditions to potrjax@gmail.com.
Well, it is the Putting on the Ritz Talent Competition tomorrow, July 10th at the Ritz Theater and Museum on North Davis. We've got a link on our website. Dr. Sean Powell, Deborah McDuffie, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for listening. Please join us tomorrow when our panel of journalists discusses the week's biggest headlines, including
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjax.com. The North Florida TPO is committed to shaping our transportation future. We're focused on planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, connected community. Learn more at northfloridatpo.com.
On the next Electro Lounge, we turn down the world and turn up the chill. 10 p.m. Saturday night on the Electro Lounge, where music matters. Only on WJCT News 89.9.